Welcome to our presentation about supporting partnerships with Aboriginal families in metropolitan areas. This resource kit is what I believe will be beneficial in the classroom to support and foster respectful and quality partnerships with Aboriginal families. These may not be direct resources that will only be used with parents, but will foster a safe and respectful environment in the class that will contribute to a quality partnership. Firstly, I'd like to make an acknowledgement to country. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are learning on, the Whadjuk Noongar people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make to the life of this city and this region. We'll start off with some background knowledge. In 2020, it was estimated that the Aboriginal population was 3% of the total Australian population. So the chances of you having an Aboriginal student in your class is low, but it is also likely, depending on the location of your school, you may have many Aboriginal students and families to work with. Research says that although the rate of Indigenous students' access to and participation in education has shown improvement in some recent decades, there are still many outcomes that are not being achieved. Hence the need for educators working with Aboriginal students and families to be quality and ensuring that the best outcomes for these students are being met. I'll leave you with a statistic that'll get you thinking about the dire need to improve outcomes for Aboriginal learners. An Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander child born in Australia today is 4 times less likely to be attending school at the age of 15. After hearing that statistic, it is essential that we, as new educators, need to raise the standard for Aboriginal students, and strong partnerships with their families will support this. The goals of these partnerships with Aboriginal families is to share and celebrate their heritage, language and culture, to build pride and make sure this is visible in our classrooms, to build a safe and culturally responsive environment for the child will make them feel more inclined to coming into school, and this can be achieved through seeing positive relationships between the parents and the teachers. Also, building a comfortable and culturally appropriate space for parents to feel comfortable to talk to the teacher about their child's developmental concerns. The main aim for these partnerships is to be genuine. Without having genuine concern for their child, you will not be able to make a difference. Forming partnerships with Aboriginal families links to many documents we use as early childhood educators. Firstly, the Early Years Learning Framework, which one of the main pillars of the document is belonging. We want our Aboriginal families to feel that they belong in the school and in the classroom. The EYLF states that belonging is a crucial aspect of building safe and respectful and secure relationships. Children belong first to a family, and we as educators need to make positive connections with these families who were the child's first teachers. Partnership is a principle in the EYLF, which is a direct link to what we are trying to achieve. Cultural competence is a practice that is outlined in the EYLF that also direct links to the types of partnerships we are trying to support. The teacher needs to become competent in understanding cultures, especially those of our First Nations. The Aboriginal Cultural Standards Framework is pictured on the left. Standard 1 of this document is relationships. Culturally responsive schools foster positive partnerships, communication, and interaction between staff, Aboriginal students, their parents and families, and the local Aboriginal community. Staff establish and maintain positive relationships with Aboriginal students, their parents, and families. SCASA, which is our WA curriculum, informs educators on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures as a cross-curricular priority, meaning that we should be aiming to embed these cross-curricular priorities in our programs taught in the classroom. The National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Education Strategy 2015 is pictured on the right-hand side. This document is a simple document that highlights partnerships as a priority area to strengthening Aboriginal education. Finally, Bronfenbrenner is a theory that I think best suits this topic, as his theory supports the involvement of families. His research shows that a strong mesosystem, which is the partnership between home and school, will support the child in a positive ways. so school and home can be interrelated, and these partnerships show this. I believe that the resources I will share in my kit will contribute to a strong meso system. Now we'll look at your kit. This kit will go through an acknowledgement to country, classroom labels, a reconciliation action plan, and literature to use in the classroom. Our first resource is an acknowledgement to country. The difference between an acknowledgement to country and a welcome to country is that a welcome to country is delivered by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander member from the country upon the school is located in. And an acknowledgement of country can be done by a non-Indigenous person as well as an Indigenous person who is not from that country. An acknowledgement to country pays attention to the country, but as an outsider. Why do we use acknowledgements to country? We use them to pay respects to the land we're meeting on, and it provides a connection to the country. The notion of respect is highly regarded in Aboriginal communities, so we want to mirror that with our Aboriginal families in the school. So here we have a couple of examples how to use an acknowledgement to country. Firstly, we have our formal acknowledgement to country template and our fun version of an acknowledgement to country template. The formal one can be used in probably upper primary classrooms, can also be used in the staff room or at parent-teacher interviews or meetings, and the fun version can be probably used in our lower primary to early childhood classrooms. So in both of these templates, I have had written the Noongar translation of this acknowledgement to country, and then on the bottom the standard Australian English acknowledgement to country, with a blank space to add in the primary school that you're in at or the school that you're in, so it can be designed to suit your school. I also have a screenshot of a email footer from a teacher at the primary school I work at, where she has a short acknowledgement to country that is sent every time she sends an email. So it just kind of shows that she pays respect to the owners of the land, the traditional owners of the land. I also do have a QR code there, which has the template for the formal and the fun version of these acknowledgements to country, and they're fully editable, so you can just change out the name. So where the line is, you could just change the name of the school. Our second resource here is the classroom labels in local Aboriginal language and in English. It allows the classroom to reflect a sense of celebration for Aboriginal English and how it is a legitimate language. This supports both Aboriginal English and Standard English as two different dialects of English. On the What Works program, this is the third goal of that program, is to improve academic writing and spoken English. It is a fundamental requirement for success at schools and beyond school. This should be seen as a be seen as a replacement of the language they use at home, which would be Aboriginal English or Creole, rather than just having the knowledge of when to use academic English and how to use academic English. Here we have the resources for the classroom labels. This classroom that I took pictures in were learning about giving and following directions in their maths unit. As you can see from the directional language being translated in these pictures, we have West and South both in Standard English and in the Noongar language. You can change these labels, you can make these labels to suit whatever you're teaching in the classroom and add it to a word wall, or like in the classroom like this. This was actually facing the west side of the classroom and the south side of the classroom. We also have here common directions, so up, down and turn around in the Standard English again and in Noongar. Also a map of Indigenous Australia and Indigenous Southwest of Western Australia. And again, local birds found in our southwest region here with their Noongar names. I have created a little resource for you guys using that QR code. You can have a look at a PDF with family labels in Standard English and in Noongar. I have used the Marribank Orthographics Noongar spelling system, and that is found in Sharon Gregory's dictionary, which I'll also explain a little bit later about. and that I used to come up with the translations for the resource I made for you. You can also use other dictionaries made by local Aboriginal elders, or another idea that I thought of, you could ask parents in the classroom if they know their local language. You can build partnerships by sitting down and creating these resources with them for the classroom. The next resource I have chosen to show you is the Reconciliation Action Plan. This document is created in partnerships with teachers, parents, and principals to come up with actions to work towards the school's reconciliation journey. Not all schools have this, so as a new teacher, it would be amazing to put your hand up to complete this and implement it into your school. The Reconciliation Action Plan is split up into 3 sections: relationships, respect, and opportunities. Each one of these sections has a goal to link to it. For example, in this screenshot I have taken, these are a couple of the goals for the section of relationships. Each goal has an action, a commitment, an assigned member, and a due date, as you can see in this screenshot. This screenshot is from a document that is found at one of the schools I work at, and the link to the document is just in the QR code if you wanted to have a look at the full document. These benefit partnerships by being actively present in the Reconciliation Action Plan and wanting to have change in the school. It develops respectful relationships with those Indigenous families and provides opportunities for Aboriginal families to become a part of the community in culturally respective ways. Moving on to our 4th resource, children's literature. Stories help children build and develop emotional intelligence and creativity. They nurture the growth and the development of students' personalities and social skills. They also help build empathy and understanding on certain topics. It can support partnerships as they can be shared with families at home and can be used as teacher tools that can support the learning in the classroom. That also relates to partnerships and the genuine connection with families. Here we have some different types of children's literature and literature to use in the classroom as teacher tools. First, we have Dreamtime. Then we have truth-telling. Truth-telling is actually really important when sharing stories about Aboriginal history, as honesty about everything that has happened since colonialisation is essential to hear for respecting Aboriginal heritage, but also really important for children to hear the correct historical events, of course in an age-appropriate manner. Moving on to teacher tools, these support the teacher in teaching into the classroom. So we've got the Sharon Gregory Dictionary here, as well as a book about songs in Indigenous languages. That one there is particularly in the Noongar language, and language centre books to help with social stories and counting and other educational resources in Indigenous languages. Thank you for listening along. I hope I have shown you something that you can take into your next partnership with an Aboriginal family.